Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Samantha and Brandon. As always, I am so excited to be joined by Brandon Anderson, NFL and NBA writer here at Action Network. You can find on Twitter at Wheaton Brando. Brandon, tell me about your playoff teams right now. Did you make it in every league?
Oh, I always make the playoffs. That's just like the bare minimum. That's the floor outcome. But it's going to be a tight one. I always say the goal is, for me, the number one goal is make the playoffs. 1A is make the playoffs with the bye week, if your league has that. The best way to not lose in fantasy is to not play in fantasy. So the best thing you can do is earn your bye week and skip one of those weeks. Because otherwise it's just, it's fantasy. It's random. Things happen. And, you've done your best. If you are a 1 or 2 seed, if you've got your team set up, pat yourself on your back and feel good about it. And you got to kind of play the lottery from here and hope you get a little lucky.
Well, that is not everyone's floor. I did miss the playoffs in a couple of leagues, to be honest, in like analyst type leagues. So I want to tell myself that that's okay. Yeah. One of the teams was just horrendous from the start. It just injuries. So at no point did I think I was going to make the playoffs in that one. And then the other one, I didn't know how many teams made it in that league. So I thought I was fighting for the last spot. And it turns out that only 4 teams make it or something like that. So I was like, all right, well, at least I was out of it a while ago. And then I got a surprise from another league because I came in 7th out of 12 in one league. And I was like, damn, that stinks. And they have a 7th playoff spot. Only one team gets a bye. So it's a kind of strange situation.
Like the NFL, maybe.
Yeah. So my team actually in that league is pretty good. I think I'm probably I don't know, 2nd or 3rd in points. But I've just been kind of unlucky with the wins and losses. And last week, I got Travis Kelce'd. So that was disappointing. Yeah. Literally the Lions 3rd string tight end or whatever scored more points scored the same amount of points as Travis Kelce last week. So that's the kind of week it was that we had.
It happens to the best of us. Do you have preferred playoff format, number of teams, bye weeks, the way that thing's set up? Do you have any particular ways you like it to see it?
I don't really have strong feelings. I would say that the normal setup with the top 2 teams getting a bye and about half of the teams making the playoffs. Now I think that there should be at least one spot reserved for the top scorer if the top scorer didn't already make it in, just because there have been situations where someone goes 7-7 and they had the best records. They had the best points. So yeah, I don't have too strong feelings other than just don't play into week 18.
Yes, well, that's a given for sure. Definitely don't play week 18. Still week 17 in my head, but week 17 is okay this year now that they changed the schedule. But I never figured out the solution, but I wish that there were ways to reward, in the NFL, in any sport, when you make the playoffs, you get home field. You get an advantage that carries with you based on how you did during the season. So I have not seen a site that allows it yet, but I would love for you to get home field advantage in the playoffs, so that if you were the 1 seed and you averaged 6 points a game more than the team that you're playing, you start ahead 6-0. That's your home field advantage that you earned from the season, or something like that gives you a little protection as the higher seed. I want the higher team. I want the better teams to win in the end. And that's because I expect that I'm going to have the better teams. So I want to have some advantage when I get there, not just have this crapshoot when I show up. So I thought of that. The other one is if you have a 6-team playoff. I know that this is blasphemy, but what if you skip the head-to-head and you throw 6 teams in and kind of make it an elimination round? So everyone plays their lineup, and only the top 4 go on, and then the 4 play their lineup and the top 2 go on. I don't even mind that the 2 teams in the championship do a 2-week head-to-head. I've enjoyed that before. So, mix it up. I think there's some ways to make playoffs a little better.
I don't think I've played in any of these interesting playoff formats, but speaking of just randomness though, Oh my goodness. The COVID situation last week was bad.
Oh,
We thought that was bad. And now it's going to be worse this week. So that's going to be really tough for managers, especially going into the first week of the playoffs with like a lot of guys in jeopardy of not playing or like someone around them that's going to affect them, like Baker Mayfield not playing or, whatever. And then we did have a slew of injuries last week. Lamar Jackson going out early. Don't know if Tyler Huntley's going to start that game. So it's going to be a little dicey this week, but it's kind of like, this is why we love it. Some of like the randomness, but also I don't want to be like, that's why we love it. COVID,
yeah.
certainly not that at all. I just mean, we do like some of the like unexpected type stuff. So,
and a plea for mercy. If you're a commissioner in your league, we're in a pandemic. So if something weird happens and like last second, one of your guys, someone in your league has a player miss from COVID or something, like there's random stuff happening everywhere. So I know that we all have our 10 commandment rules written out and we have to follow it to a T. Like this is a game and we're in a pandemic. And if something weird happens, adapt on the fly and allow things like, don't let your playoffs and championship be decided because a game got postponed 3 days or, this team lost all their starters for COVID or something like that. So, this is the fantasy flex after all. So be flexible and make it work. Let everyone have a fair chance.
I agree. Jamie Eisenberg was on 21 Questions earlier this week, and he was talking about how, like I said, what would be one rule that you would change across leagues if you could? And he said something like, be able to like sub a player that either like something like that or like that went down in the first quarter because that just stinks. So I thought that was a radical idea, but maybe in the context of COVID makes more sense for sure. All right, let us just jump into our final edition of Play Hold Drop. Brandon, I'm getting sentimental.
I know it's our last one. Does this mean are we graduating? Have we earned our PhD? Is that what this means?
Yeah, this is we defend our dissertation, whatever
there
the hell
go.
you call.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Whatever you call it. I am no academic, so I'm not even going to pretend to know like what it's actually called. So cool.
Well, I will refer to you as Dr. Samantha from now on after this podcast, assuming that you've defended appropriately.
Okay. All right. Let us, and we've got some obviously real ones like normal, and then we've got some fun ones at the end for you guys. So definitely stay tuned for those.
All right, well, let's start out with our quarterbacks. Like usual, we managed to keep Kirk Cousins out. He's out of our lives. There's no more PhD for Kirk. So we do have a quarterback in the Vikings game, though. We're going with Justin Fields playing the Vikings. We've got Jimmy Garoppolo and Tua Tagovailoa. So what do you think between these three? Play, hold, or drop?
I didn't mean to rub salt in the wound today, by the way, when I said, wow, the Vikings pass defense is really bad. Like I knew it was bad, but it's pretty bad. So that's probably at least part of the reason that Justin Fields is even in this conversation. I mean, I think he's a serviceable streamer. The play for me, though, is going to be Tua. He was one of my favorite waiver wire pickups this week that I think you can ride for all 3 weeks in the playoffs. Since week 6, when he returned from his injury, he's QB 10 for fantasy on a per game basis, averaging more points per game than Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, just as we all predicted, obviously. So, the schedule starts with the Jets at home, then on the road in New Orleans, and then Tennessee. So it doesn't get much better than that. I would say his week 15 matchup is the worst of the group, which is just an indictment on how bad the Falcons and Vikings have been against the pass. So I like him as a fringe top 12 play. I'm going to hold on to Justin Fields. Had a nice game in his return from injury. It was his second best fantasy performance to date, finished top 12 for the week. He has the second best matchup of the group against the Vikings, but the schedule does get tougher. That said, I think he just has so much of a higher upside than the other guys. He's the guy that you're swinging for the fences with. So I'm sitting in this week just because I think Tua is the safer play. I'm just hoping Matt Nagy doesn't screw this up for us. I can see it happening. And then Jimmy G, he actually has an amazing schedule down the stretch. Falcons, Titans, and Texans. The Falcons are second worst in the NFL against fantasy quarterbacks, but I just think his upside is lower than the rest. I mean, he's been really like decent over the past couple weeks, and this is a good matchup. But of the three, I mean, I'm going with Tua. What say you, Brandon?
Yeah, so that's really interesting because Tua is my drop here. So I was really listening out on that one because I didn't even really give Tua a ton of credit or consideration here. And you got me thinking again a little bit. I think the reason for me is looking at these three, it's clear to me if this is my spot, I am not relying on my quarterback to win my game for me. I just need a quarterback not to lose my game for me. So in that spot, I'm looking more at floor. So I actually went with Jimmy Garoppolo as my play because I think that he has the safer floor. I agree, there's not a lot of ceiling there, but I don't see a huge ceiling in any of these three right now. Garoppolo, 5 of the last 6 games, has 2 touchdowns or more. So very stable. It's not that I trust him. Those metrics have been very good. His like EPA and all the fancy metrics have been, performing well this year. But I trust San Francisco. Like if I play Jimmy, I also get to play George Kittle and Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. I get all of their stuff. He just has to get the ball to them, like shuffle pass it forward and let me have some stats for that. So I'll play him. I ended up dropping Tua because I agree with Fields on the hold. I think that he's kind of in the middle of the field per se. Last 6 games, only 6 touchdowns, even counting rushing, but about 55 rushing yards a game. That's an extra touchdown. So that gets you to the floor a little bit better. Tua, just the numbers are kind of all over the map for me. And I know the Dolphins have, I think, like a 5-game win streak right now, but something feels off to me. I'm just not quite ready to buy on that team yet. So we got a couple of Dolphins in here. I just couldn't quite get there on Tua, but you've got me thinking again about it. So you made a good case for him.
I think also part of it is that they may have no running backs left going into this game. Might be crazy.
Did they have any to start with?
Dude, but like they have this whole outbreak now and they may need to sign some guy off the street. Like, so I mean, I just think that it will lend itself because of that a little bit more to throwing, but I totally understand your reservations about Tua. He's not the sexiest name, but neither is Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy's like an attractive dude, but like the name itself doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for fantasy football. All right, let us move on to running backs.
Yeah, so I like this trio that you chose because all 3 of them are coming off a randomly huge game after having done basically nothing the whole season. So here we are, it's the playoffs. Rashaad Penny, that's the one on the Seahawks playing the Rams, Miles Sanders or D'Onta Foreman. What do you think between these 3?
So Foreman has the best week 15 matchup of the 3. The Steelers have just looked so bad against the run. Like I feel like I could have gotten like at least 10 yards against them, but 3rd most rushing yards per game, the 7th most fantasy points to running backs this year. And they've just been torched over the last 5 weeks by Dalvin Cook, Devonta Freeman, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, and DeAndre Swift. I know D'Onta Foreman would probably be towards the bottom of that list, but at the same time, I really think that defense has looked really bad. Foreman has had 2 double-digit fantasy points in a row in half PPR, found the end zone last week against the Jags. He appears to be leading this backfield of scrubs. So I'm going to just roll with it and hope that, like the matchup works out. I'm holding on to Miles Sanders. He did explode in week 13, then got injured. So he had 27 touches for 142 scrimmage yards in that game against the Jets, but kind of everyone goes off against the Jets on the ground. They had the bye, and it looks like he is trying to play this week. He's got the toughest matchup of the 3 with Washington on deck. Washington ranks 12th best against fantasy running backs. It's not a stay away matchup for me, but I'm just like really concerned about this Eagles backfield. I mean, we've got Sanders, we've got Kenny Gainwell, who ended up having a good game in the game that Sanders was hurt because of that. And then Boston Scott, who I thought was going to be the guy, he was sick all week. And then like, just, he was used like a zombie, maybe in just emergency situations. And then Jordan Howard, don't know how healthy he is. So it's really just like, I need to see how they're going to wield this backfield before I feel comfortable rolling out any of them. Rashaad Penny, top waiver out of the week for good reason. Popped off for 16 carries, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Houston. I just figure some of the usage, at least some of it, is going to be game script, because this game was not close at any point. And the game script could be flipped next week on the road against the Rams, coming off of a huge Monday night win over the Cardinals. Toss in the fact that Alex Collins and DJ Dallas are still being involved. I just think he's the least enticing of the group. Fine waiver ad. Of these three, he's not the one that I want to play.
So I think I'm different than you on all three of these here. So I'm going to start by cutting Miles because the Eagles, this surprised me. The Eagles have been a running team, this kind of the middle half of the season so far. And so you'd think that he should be reliable, but he's just not getting reliable enough carries and yards. And even worse, he hasn't scored a touchdown all season, and the receptions have disappeared. They're really not throwing it to him, at least, anymore. So there's just not a ton of upside there for me, unless it happens to be the day where he gets a bunch of carries, but he seems to get in the doghouse a lot too with injuries. Just too much downside and not enough upside for me. So he's the drop for me. And between the other two, so I'm going to play Penny. And I think here, this is just me taking a shot at some upside. And I know we're not going to get the upside from last week, probably 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think like half of that came on a late touchdown. We just broke away near the end of the game. So it's a crowded backfield. I'm a little more worried about Tennessee's crowded backfield. D'Onta Foreman only played 32% of the snaps last week, and that was in a shutout. So that was a positive game script. And even then, Hilliard's on the field, McNichols on the field. Like, you'd think of all the game, like, look, if Derrick Henry was playing, Derrick Henry would have played like 140% of the snaps in a shutout game. Like, they would just hand it off to him multiple times on every play down the stretch. And that's, Foreman is the power runner. Like, that's the game script that you should trust him in. So Seattle, I don't know, Dallas and Collins, they don't inspire too much for me. They're not even really that different of backs. I just think Penny is the more talented guy. And I also don't mind the situations in those. I kind of like Pittsburgh at home against Tennessee, and I think Seattle can keep it close with the Rams. So I'm going to lean playing Penny, going for just keeping a hot down the stretch. We've seen it with fantasy before. You know, you get these random running backs. One of these guys is going to win someone a playoff game this week. A lot of someone's a playoff game. So if it's my lineup, hopefully it's Rashaad Penny.
Yeah, it came down to matchup for me. I just thought that the matchup with for the Titans was just the best. And it looked like Foreman was being used earlier in the game, and then that he kind of disappeared when the game was no longer competitive. I mean, not that was competitive for that long.
Was it ever with Jackson?
Okay. Fine. And that's when they started mixing in Hilliard and McNichols. Sure. So, I mean, I think that they maybe were trying to protect him at that point, but who knows? I mean, that's my best guess here, but of course that means Rashaad Penny is going to have 3 touchdowns this week. Wow. I started him in like 2 leagues. I had a league that I started, I kid you not, like Russell Gage, Joshua Palmer, and Rashaad Penny.
Hey, you know, if it works, it works.
And it worked. Like every one of those guys.
Those games, right?
And every one of those guys was like fantastic. But like I was like literally like Sunday morning being like, oh crap, I need a wide receiver. And I picked up Joshua Palmer, and it was like, I don't know who this guy is. Like I know that he's on the Chargers, but I don't know anything about him. So jokes on everyone else that ran to the waiver wire to try to pick up Rashaad Penny. He's already on my team.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a rough spot when you're one of us and we're full-time, you know, NFL analysts, and you're like, wait, who is this guy? What's his name? If we haven't heard of you, like, you are really down the roster list of ways.
I'm sorry, Joshua Palmer's grandmother.
Yes, for sure. All right, let's look at some receivers. So we've got DeVante Parker, who, by the way, might be like the single player that I just forget exists. Like every month his name comes up and I'm like,
I mean, it's easy to forget because he's like in and out. Like, I mean, you see him for a game and then you might not see him for 6 more games.
Yeah. So we'll see what we think about him. We've got DeVante Parker, Chase Claypool, and the tastefully named Brandon Aiyuk. What do you think between those 3?
These are actually really close to me. So Parker's another guy that I did really like as a waiver wire ad, but that's like, when I say that I like someone as a waiver wire ad, like we're looking at guys that are 50% out there or more. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I love them. It means like if you need a receiver, he might be a good pickup. Now, he's been a solid play throughout his career when healthy. Appeared to be good to go before the Dolphins bye after missing 7 games earlier this year. So Brandon, you are forgiven for not for forgetting this guy exists. I mean, he caught 5 of 5 targets for 62 yards against the Giants, but did take a backseat in terms of targets to Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, and Albert Wilson, 2 of which saw 11 targets. So, I mean, I think he's coming back and there is a little bit more competition. The matchup isn't as enticing as it would seem because the Jets have been abysmal at most things this year, but have weirdly allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points to receivers. I think that's because teams just jump up really high on them and then start running the ball, and their run defense is trash. So I think he's a fine waiver wire pickup, but he is the least favorite in this group. So I'm okay with moving on with him. I think I'm going to go Chase Claypool as the play. It's cool. He gets to play 2 of the worst bottom 2 defenses against fantasy receivers in back-to-back weeks. Did really well against the Vikings, caught 8 of 9 targets for 93 yards. I think he's going to feast on the Titans, who've allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to receivers, with Ben Roethlisberger looking like an adequate passer. Let's say that. Let's give him adequate. And this juicy matchup, I just think he has a lot of upside in this one. I'm going to hold Brandon Aiyuk. I have trust issues with this Brandon, not you, Brandon, not all Brandons, but this Brandon. Week 13, Deebo Samuel's out, and I'm like, oh, this is the game. This is the Aiyuk game. 3 of 6 passes for 55 yards. Week 14, where he's like outside of the circle of trust, with Samuel back in the lineup, he catches 6 of 11 targets for 62 yards and a touchdown, because all of that totally makes sense. So, I mean, the matchup this week against the Falcons is fantastic. They've allowed the 4th most fantasy points for 2 receivers this year. I just think like weirdly, he has the biggest like bagel potential of all these guys. Like there's such a wide range of outcomes for an Aiyuk game. I think I like need to see him do it 2 weeks in a row for me for him to like come back in the circle of trust. So he is my hold. What do you think, Brandon?
So I'm going to change what I was going to go with here. You sold me. I'm going to back all 3 of your decisions. I was dropping Parker, so I'm with you on that. I was going to play Brandon Aiyuk. He is a Brandon after all, so it's an easy tiebreak for me. So yeah, Aiyuk, his numbers over the last 6 games, 28 catches, 408 yards, and 3 touchdowns, 42 targets, very solid, very playable. But like you said, we don't know what we're going to get. And here's the thing. I do trust San Francisco to produce as an offense. Their offense has been very good, but you're right. Kittle is a bigger target. Samuel is a bigger target. Elijah Mitchell or whoever is going to run the ball is going to get some looks. We don't know what Aiyuk is going to look like. Chase Claypool is super talented. I think his floor is a little bit lower, but I think his ceiling is a lot higher. And he always has that big play in him down the field. I wish they would just chuck it up more often. Like, your offense is Big Ben. Like, what else? What are we doing here? Just do the Randy Moss plays, throw it down the field, and see if Claypool can just bail you out. Like, there are worse things Pittsburgh could do. So yeah, the matchup is very good against Tennessee. You convinced me. I'm gonna give Claypool a shot and put him in over Aiyuk.
Love to see it. And the thing with Parker, like sometimes people like they'll get on my case and be like, how can you suggest Tua and not Parker? And first of all, it's not like one or the other. And second, like I think Tua could do well without Parker necessarily having a fabulous game. Like Parker could have a game like he had against the Giants where he catches 5 passes for like 50 yards. And I mean, cool in PPR, that's 10 points, but it's not super exciting. So I think like Jalen Waddle is the wide receiver 1. He's looked phenomenal. So I think Parker's kind of coming back to a different situation where Waddle has really broken out. Anyway, let's move on to everyone's favorite position.
Well, before we do tight end, we did get a late mailbag question here from Jason, one of our frequent listeners. So another receivers one that I want to ask you. So you posted on our Slack, DeAndre Hopkins is out for the regular season. So he's done. Big loss. So I'm looking at those other Cardinals receivers, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore. What are you thinking fantasy-wise from those 3? If you had to play one, hold one, or drop one, what do you think about the Cardinals receivers?
I think I'm
surprised you with this one.
I think I'm playing Christian Kirk. I think he makes the most sense right now. But I have been like in the Rondale Moore fan club all season. Sean Kerner also like president of that club. So we were literally slacking about this, saying like, is it Rondale season? It's Rondale season for sure. So I mean, hopefully we've seen him have games with like 10 or plus targets, and hopefully this means that he will see a little uptick in targets, maybe uptick in red zone usage, but I'm not as sure about him as I am about Christian Kirk. AJ Green just like doesn't give me the same like vibe. Like I don't think that he has the same upside and the same floor as the other guys. So I'm holding more, playing Kirk, dropping Green. What about you?
I think Rondale is the drop for me. Looking at his targets and receptions, it's just the floor is so low. Like he's just too much of a gadgety sort of player, and if it's not a gadget week, it just can go badly. So to me, if we look at down the stretch, I would expect AJ Green to have maybe the one biggest game of the group, but I think Christian Kirk is the guy that you want in your lineup like all the weeks of the season. So I think he's probably the one that gets the most catches left. So I would play Kirk slightly over Green, and I think Rondale is the drop for me. Ronald Moore, I think, used to be a running back for the Jets in like the 80s or 90s. So I'll drop him as well.
I do this all the time where I like meld two players. I've got Ronald Jones in my head and Rondale Moore. So of course that.
When I first started playing fantasy, there was a Ron Moore and a Rob Moore, and it was very confusing which one was which, but thankfully neither one was super fantasy relevant. So you just skip them both entirely. All right, so let's get to our tight ends then. So we are going with everyone's favorite rookie, Kyle Pitts, and another rookie, Pat Freiermuth, and then Dalton Schultz. So got the big name rookie and two other less big names, but what do you think as we head into the final stretch here?
How do you think Twitter is going to respond when Pat Freiermuth ends up as the top tight end for fantasy over Kyle Pitts? I mean, like it's bad. But you know what? I love this guy. I actually love Freiermuth. I might just have a thing for like tight ends because I know I was like a Kyle Pitts apologist for a while. Freiermuth's target share has not been impressive, but he's just getting the job done. Since the Steelers bye, he has scored 6 times over 7 games and is the tight end 4.5 PPR on a per game basis over that span. Those numbers would be even higher if he had managed to hold on to what would have been the game-winning touchdown on the final play.
And thank God that he didn't, because the Vikings did not need to lose a 500-point Thursday night lead, and not in my life. We've done that a few other times.
Fair enough, Brandon. But, you know, some of us like high-scoring things for fantasy. So, I mean, his talent and upside are just so sky high, and he just remains such an integral part of this offense, especially in the red zone. So I am going full steam ahead with Pat Freiermuth. I think like more people need to like, I'm like the evangelist, like more people need to know the good word about this guy. I'm holding on to Kyle Pitts. I think this may just be sentimental at this point, but he was passable in week 14 against the Panthers, caught 5 of 6 targets for 61 yards, good enough for 9 fantasy points, and his best fantasy performance since week 7. In fact, he has not crested the double-digit threshold once since week 7 in Miami. He's currently the tight end 28.5 PPR over the last 7 games. He has the worst matchup of the group. The 49ers have been actually pretty nasty against tight ends all year, allowing the 4th fewest points to the position. I do like the week 16 matchup, though, against the Lions. So that's kind of the sentimental side, and the week 16 matchup is why I'm holding on to him. Schultz, I mean, he's a guy that had a really hot start to the year, coming off of his worst game of the year, 1 catch on 3 targets for 4 yards, his 6th single-digit fantasy performance in 7 weeks. He, like many tight ends, has just become really touchdown dependent, which is tricky when you're competing with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Zeke, Pollard for targets, and you're kind of dealing with Dak, who hasn't really looked himself. This week's matchup against the Giants is middle of the road, but I just have the least amount of trust in him right now. So how do you feel about the tight ends?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one as well. Schultz is definitely the drop for me. He just doesn't quite measure up to the other two. And I was very close on these two, and you convinced me again. Freiermuth is just, he's getting those red zone looks. And with tight ends, that's really what it comes to be about. 5 touchdowns the last 7 games. you're right. The target share is low. Only 11 targets the last few games makes me nervous. But Kyle Pitts is not really getting a ton of targets, especially with Ridley out. I thought that he would just be racking up targets, kind of acting like a wide receiver one, and he just really hasn't been. So 6 or 7 targets, probably like 4 catches for 60 yards. If it's a full PPR league, I maybe play Pitts because I think that the floor is pretty solid with him. But I'm usually half PPR league. And I think at this point, you got to like your touchdown chances with Freiermuth. So yeah, we'll go with him. And I'm with you on this one.
Let us just move on to some silly play, hold, and drops.
All right. Yeah, we want to have a little fun here. It's our last episode of the season. So just wanted to wrap up with some, a little bonus PhD. You can get your master's on top of your PhD today. I mean, I think that's backwards. You can get add a second doctorate. Okay. First
this is the postdoctorate.
There we go. Yeah, that's the one. There it is. Congratulations. We have defended our dissertation. Now we'll get a postdoc. So first one, play, hold, or drop. Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football. What do you think?
I'm going to say Monday Night Football, but that's like only because of the schedule. I'm going to drop Monday Night Football because I don't like to like have to stay up. I mean, granted, now I live in mountain time, so it's not that bad, but like that kind of throws off my week if I have to be up kind of later. But like Monday Night Football is way better. I mean, I want the Manning cast for every single game. So this is just purely a scheduling thing. And like if Thursday Night Football can be like a little better in terms of like competitiveness. Yeah, that would be ideal. I would say they are the hold, and I love Sunday Night Football. So I'm going to say they're the play. What about you?
Yeah, I'm coming out strong on this one. Fire Thursday Night Football into the sun. Punt it out of my life. I never want Thursday Night Football again. By the way, Thursday night, yay, prize picks, elite entries. Let's do Thursday Night Football. Every week we're missing half of the teams and the quarterbacks and the injuries. It's like, yeah, that's because we just rammed these guys into each other 80 times 4 days ago. And then we're like, hey, by the way, we got a little extra TV money. Let's do it again a couple days later. So get Thursday out of here. I grew up without it. This is like my like old man shaking fist at cloud. I don't need it. It threw off the rhythm of the week. Ditch Thursday, hold Monday Night Football. That's the tradition, but the games kind of stink now, but maybe someday it comes back to more like it used to be that we used to all sit down and watch that game together, Samantha. And now it's like, well, should we watch it? I don't know. It's Houston this week. You're right, though. The Manning cast saves that one. Sunday Night Football, the easy play. That's the big one. And especially after a very full, busy Sunday, you could kind of catch your breath, settle in for the one game you get to really full attention to. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Hit us with some fantasy rule hold drops.
Yes. All right. So standard scoring, full PPR or half PPR, play, hold, or drop.
Half PPR is obviously the play. Like I don't, it's just obvious. So it's a matter of if you like standard or full. I would say full is the hold and standard's the drop. But I know there are a lot of people that are just going to complain that guys can get like 10 fantasy points for getting all these like passes that go for 1 yard or something like that. So I understand the arguments against PPR, but I would rather have PPR than standard.
Yeah, my only opinion here is play on half PPR. So I'm with you on that. That's the one that you should be sticking with. I think full is a little high. Half is, it's the Goldilocks. It's just right. So I don't have an opinion on the other one. Let's keep moving. All right. So next fantasy one, daily fantasy, redraft leagues, or dynasty leagues. What do you think? Play, hold, or drop?
I don't plan enough DFS or dynasty, so I'm just going to have to say that redraft is going to be the play for me. And I think I'd rather play DFS. Like if I just like needed to go do something more, and I do talk about DFS on the radio and stuff. And I would rather get more into that than dynasty. Nothing against dynasty for sure. I just think like it's a little like it would be my least favorite of the group, because I do like DFS a lot just because of the idea that you can get these players that you don't have on your teams and just kind of start fresh every week.
Yeah, I'm with you. Redraft is the play, and I'm not super excited about either one. I'm pretty similar to you on this one. a dynasty seems like it should be very appealing to me. So I guess I'll give dynasty a hold. Maybe I've just never really been in the right dynasty league. To me, dynasty leagues always end up folding after like 3 years. They just, you never get people to stick around for the long haul. So then it's just a cheat code for me because I just get all the old guys that everyone else is avoiding. I'm like, well, this league's never going to last anyway. I'll just beat you all for the first few years and then join the next dynasty. So the idea of a dynasty is appealing to me. The idea of daily fantasy for me personally is less appealing. I like to invest and like get my guys. I like the trading, as we know. You can't trade. I need the redraft. I need the dynasty. Like, oh man, trading picks and all that stuff. So, but yeah, redraft is my jam. That's what I'll stick with.
Glad we can agree on that.
Yeah. All right. Alternative fantasy scoring format: tight end premium, 2 quarterback leagues, or points per first down. Play, hold, or drop.
So I wanted to put these kind of all in the same group because it's kind of in the vein of like making like certain positions more competitive, like quarterback in like 12-team leagues. I mean, you can just pick random guys up off the waiver wire and stuff like that. So like making it 2 quarterback makes that position a little bit more weighted, I guess, like fairly. And the same thing with tight end premium, and then points per first down. I love that instead of or in addition to some kind of PPR blended thing. So I am going to say points per first down is the play. Hold is the 2 quarterback because I would rather have it be super flex. And tight end premium is the drop. I don't really like positional premiums like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I wish Superflex was on this list too. So yeah, I like the option to play a second quarterback, but the mandate to do it often leaves you with, there are always a few teams are just like, oh, I have to start Davis Mills this week. Like that can be rough. So the 2 quarterback thing, it depends a lot on your league size to me. If it's a 10-team league or something smaller, you got to have the 2 quarterbacks to make enough relevant, but it's a really tight window. Once it gets to 12 teams, it's kind of shaky through some of those bye weeks. Anything past 12, you're really pushing it. So I'm with you. I actually have never played a tight end premium, so I'm willing to try it. I'll try anything. I like trying out new scorings, but yeah,
it's a very
I'll play
hot thing right now. Like, I feel like just like everyone's doing tight end premium and everyone's doing the 3rd round reversal. So I was trying to think of some cool alternatives.
Yeah, I like it. I still like my tip to you, if you want to try something new that not many people are doing, I still like you have to have a rookie in your lineup, non-quarterback.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So like a flex spot that is a running back, receiver, or tight end, but it has to be a rookie. And especially if you have like a keeper league or dynasty league, it just puts a little more premium on, get to know those new guys coming in. So that, and I like too, some of these rules, like fantasy, we make fantasy so easy for our listeners. We've got resources for everything now. Some of these rules you got to do your own research on a little bit and then give you a little extra advantage if you know what you're doing. You can't just buy the magazine or print out the spreadsheet on your way to the draft.
Oh my God, buy the magazine.
My goodness, how old am I?
You are such a boomer.
Like, listen, I've been in fantasy magazines. It was a big deal back in like the early 2000s. So I'm just gonna, I'll take the L on that.
I am just ribbing you. That is
I'm so old.
All right, let us move on to some fun ones about coaches.
Yes. All right. So play, hold, or drop. You have to play and hold 2 of these guys. Apparently, you can't just drop all of them. So we got some NFL coaches for you. Urban Meyer, who you remember wrote in an email to one of our questions one time before. You may recall that. So Urban Meyer, Matt Nagy, and Joe Judge. Play, hold, or drop. Let's do it this way. Your Panthers have to get one of these guys to coach your team for the next year. I'll do the same for the Vikings. Who you got? Play, hold, or drop. Nagy, Meyer, or Judge?
Judge, but it's close. I mean, it's not great. I guess my thought is I think the Giants are bad because of their leadership and their front office. Like, I think this is more Dave Gettleman's fault. I don't think Joe Judge is a fantastic coach, but of these guys, I guess I would rather have him coaching my Carolina Panthers. Matt Nagy, just so frustrating. Not just for fantasy purposes, but for actual football purposes. I'm not a Bears fan, and I'm not invested in some of these games, and I find myself like screaming at the TV because Matt Nagy just frustrates me. And then Urban Meyer, but he would be the hold. And obviously Urban's going to be the drop.
Yeah. Urban Meyer is like the Thursday night football of coaches for me. Like, just get him out of here. The Jaguars should fire him right now. Like, don't even wait till the end of the season.
No,
He's
I don't
actively damaging
what he's doing. Like, why is he just letting this happen? I don't get it.
It's done. So yeah, I will, I guess, reluctantly share your opinion and go with Joe Judge, just because I don't want, like, Matt Nagy has actively sabotaged the Bears this year. He has tried to make himself look good on the Andy Dalton versus Justin Fields decision. And that's just unforgivable to me. You got to move on from that. Urban Meyer is a disaster and get him out of here. So by default, I guess Joe Judge, though, get my man a game manager. Somebody else control the clock and the timeouts and all that, because my goodness, can Joe Judge not do that? So more coaches. Let's say we're the Bears or the Jaguars or the Giants. We're replacing our coach, but our only options are to bring back someone who was fired last year. So play, hold, or drop. Adam Gase, Bill O'Brien, or Matt Patricia. Whoa.
Oof. Okay. I'm going to say play Bill O'Brien, but take away his GM privileges. Like, I think that was the issue, is that it's not necessarily him as a coach. It's that, like, he's trading DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson in a ham sandwich. And like, I don't understand why they just didn't take him off that kind of role as like the de facto GM. And I mean, I get it. Like, maybe it was just time to move on, but he's probably the best of that group. Gase is just the job. Like, I used to work for the New York Post, and like, I think they're probably going to be the most favorable outlet to the Jets. And yeah, I mean, it's just painful. And we've seen a lot of players, I mean, not Sam Darnold, but a lot of players have a post Adam Gase glow up. So I think that kind of speaks to kind of how bad he is. Matt Patricia, I mean, he's just like incompetent, but like in a different way than like Adam Gase is like destructively incompetent, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Matt Patricia at least like looks like a fun dude. Like, he looks like a guy that you like hang out with at a sports bar, right? Like, at least there's that. At least you'll enjoy your press conferences. Give Detroit credit for that. They get coaches who are entertaining, at least.
Right.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien. I think you were wrong on that trade. I think Bill O'Brien threw in the ham sandwich with DeAndre Hopkins. That's how bad that trade was. But no, I'm with you. Actually, as a coach, he was pretty good. The Texans, every year, Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien just kept winning games. So if you can limit his power and just let him coach, and especially scheme up the offense, he's definitely the coach that you want coaching of this group. And yeah, so I'm with you on that. Get rid of Adam Gase, unless it's a long-term plan to bring in Adam Gase and then immediately fire him. And maybe you do for your team the thing of the after Adam Gase boost. Maybe that works out for you.
I like that plan for sure. All right. Speaking of Adam Gase alumni.
Speaking of just okay. Panthers quarterbacks, your guys, your many options. Play, hold, or drop. Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, or PJ Walker. Or if you're the Panthers, just play all three of them, apparently.
I think it's going to be some kind of tripartite committee. Like, that none of this surprises me. PJ Walker, like, we know what he is. Like, stop trying to put him in there. I mean, like, I just think he has the lowest upside of the two, and of the three, rather. Sam Darnold, I'm going to put on ice, and Cam Newton, I'm going to play. And it's like, but like, none of it's good. Like, you're talking about one level up from the worst quarterback or something. So, I mean, I think Cam brings an excitement and dimension to the game that, some of these other guys don't. Sam Darnold, he's dead to me. So I have no interest in him. We might see him this week though. So I will just be drowning myself in some old fashions.
Yeah, that seems about right. All I have to say on this one is just play Cam. At least the fans will have fun.
Yes,
like
exactly. He's fun. He's exciting. The
season is done. Like, you're 5-8. The schedule is rough. It's over. You had a good time. Play Cam Newton. The fans want Cam. Just play Cam. So we've got some Game of Thrones / football crossovers here. So first one, Game of Thrones fantasy football managers. So Daenerys Targaryen, Petyr Baelish, that's Littlefinger, or Tywin Lannister. That's the dad, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to say Tywin because I actually had a lot of respect for Tywin. Like I understood his motives and I feel like he's a jerk that had the Targaryen children all killed in their cribs, but like he at least had like the levelest head, I think, of all of them. Petyr Baelish. So Tywin's going to be my play. Petyr Baelish is just like, I think he thinks he's smarter than he is. So I'm going to put him as the hold. And Dany, I just think would get too emotional and like, I don't know, blow something up. So she's going to be the drop.
So this is interesting. I was never really a big Tywin fan, as you probably can tell by my extremely noob question. He's the dad, right? So yeah, I think that I'm dropping Tywin. I don't really have a lot to contribute on him. He's very strategic. The Lannisters fell apart without him. He's probably the right play here. Petyr Baelish, to me, Littlefinger, as a fantasy manager, this is a man after my heart. He trades like I trade. This is how I would want to play fantasy. Like I would be the Littlefinger of the fantasy football league with my trade offers and my like setting you up for the next, many steps ahead. Chaos is a ladder. That sounds like a very fun fantasy strategy to me. So he makes sense to me. Dany, though, the thing with her is she always finishes the season strong. So, just get to the playoffs.
She doesn't finish the series strong.
It's not the series strong. Perhaps not. I realized that as I was explaining it. But however, the first few seasons, it's always a big finale for her. So my thinking is if you can just sneak into the playoffs with Dany, then maybe you get the championship because she's finishing the season strong. So you're right. The rough finale for our girl. So we'll hold our Khaleesi, and I'm going to play a Littlefinger and drop Tywin. Okay, next one. Game of Thrones football player. So our choices are Sandor Clegane, that's the Hound, Tormund Giantsbane, and Khal Drago. We've got it's like a 3-man defense right there. So what do you think? Who are you going to play or hold from this group?
I think I'm going to play Sandor Clegane. Like, this is a dude that will like fight through everything. You can't kill him. Like he's got legs sticking out and he like somehow finds a way to live through that. I think he's probably the smartest of the three, though I don't know how smart Khal Drogo is. Like he was just a brief kind of thing. He's just like a ferocious dude, but like, so are all these guys. I guess I would probably go Khal Drogo as the hold. He's just like pure strength that can rip a dude's tongue out of his throat, which that was a gross scene, by the way. I just watched it. And Tormund Giantsbane, he's the drop only because I just think like he doesn't have the football IQ.
So I'm a little different on this one. So I'm trying to think through like, okay, what position am I looking at for these guys?
They're probably like offensive linemen. Let's I don't know.
So I've got this figured out here. Hear me out here. So I think Khal Drago, I think that he's a tight end. He got good size. He's going to be a big red zone target and he's going to give me some catches. I'm a little worried about like not game breaking speed necessarily, but I think he's going to, he might flame out a little early. But I like Khal Drago there. My problem with the Hound is I feel like that the modern game might just be a little too fast for him. I'm just not sure that he is going to be quick enough. Yeah, he might need to be an offensive lineman. I was thinking of him more as like, I don't know, like a middle linebacker or something. So, you want him being able to beat up on guys. Put him out as like a left guard and just like hounding people. Oh man.
Oh my God, that. Brandon.
I wasn't even trying to do that. So actually I like Tormund. So I'm seeing Tormund as a defensive end. I'm seeing him as like the Brian Burns of this team. He's gonna like just his crazy energy and his crazy red hair. He's gonna come off the end and be in your backfield. And look, he's Giants in his name. So how bad of a football player can he be? Maybe Tormund is the Lawrence Taylor of Game of Thrones. So I'm gonna play Tormund, and I will hold on to Khal Drago at tight end. We do love our tight ends named Kyle Pitts Drago. I don't know. And we'll drop the Hound.
It's a stretch,
that was a
Brandon.
bad segment for me.
All right. Final question, and we can get out of here.
Last one. Game of Thrones fantasy commissioner. Who do you want running your league? We've got Jon Snow, Brandon Stark, or Tyrion Lannister.
Okay, first of all, I'm not like team Brandon in any way. Sorry, Brandon, but I'm just like not team.
That is a harsh sentence. We waited all season on the fantasy flex for you to drop that on me.
I'm just not team Brand. Like I hate the way that the series ended. So, I'm just like kicking him out. Like I'm not excited about him.
You can't kick a cripple. That's not nice.
He is the job for me. I think Tyrion strikes me as like the smartest and fairest, kind of like the way that when he came into a Marine with Jorah and he was like kind of talking to Khaleesi about like what she should do with him after he had like betrayed her. And I just feel like he would be like very level-headed. He's even gone against like his own family and all that. So I think that he would be like good to adjudicate things like this. And then Jon Snow would be the Holt. He's just like he can be corrupted. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he can be, and not necessarily a bad way, but like he did show weakness in certain times, loyalty to his family, loyalty to Ygritte. So, I think that he is the Hold for me. What about you?
Yeah, I think Tyrion is the right play here. He's the guy that you want running your league. He's wise. We should have had a little more shine for my guy Tyrion at the end of the series. Like he's the one that you really wanted running the show, making the decisions. Jon is almost a little too loyal. Like I feel like I'm going to get into Jon's league and then like a couple of Jon's buddies are going to do an under the table trade that clearly should get vetoed. And Jon's just going to be like, no, these are my guys. I'm just going to let this go. He's a little too loyal, tries to be a little too pure. So I'm going to drop Jon. I can't drop Brandon. Like, how can I drop Brandon? So yeah, not my favorite character on the show. Definitely, I could have chosen a few better Brandons on there, but I'll hold on to him for his namesake and then play Tyrion.
Fair enough. There's no bias there for Brandons here.
No bias. By the way, bonus last one PhD, play holder drop. Anyone named Ryan, players' grandmas, or grandmothers of people named Ryan. What do you think?
I have an ex named Ryan, so drop. And then play the grandmothers, just grandmothers in general. Grandmas are cool. And then grandmas of Ryan, just get to put in the middle because they're Ryan adjacent. Yeah.
So Ryan, bye. Play the grandmas. I'm with you.
All right, that'll do it for our final, this isn't a mailbag, but it's kind of a mailbag episode of the season. I can't thank you enough, Brandon, for coming on here and helping me out, helping out our fans and our listeners kind of parse through some very dicey decisions and everything like that. So we are doing, not all heroes wear capes.
That's right. Well, thank you for having me all season. I've had so much fun hanging out and answering mailbag questions and occasionally making fun of our listeners, which, maybe that will come up in the review at the end of the year. But it's been so much fun. And listeners too, thank you all for listening. You've made this a blast for us and for all the questions you've submitted all years and the PhDs. And it's been a fun season. Let's win some championships.
Let us win some championships. All right. As a reminder, Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon are here on the Fantasy Flex every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, giving you guys all the DFS, waiver wire, and rankings info to help you dominate your fantasy leagues. Thanks again for listening. Please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts. Maybe just go on there and say something nice about Brandon or say something nice about me. Download us wherever you like to listen, and we will see you next time on the Fantasy Flex presented by PrizePicks. Peace out, y'all.